Hello and welcome back to Future Proof. This is our fourth and final show. But don't be too sad because we've got loads of films for you to watch. But first, we've got the weekly headlines.
In Scottish election news, last night was the final leaders debate, which you can catch up on the STV YouTube channel. In it, Malcolm Offord, leader of Reform UK Scotland, was blasted over bragging about his property and luxury car portfolio. Ross Greer, leader of the Scottish Greens, and Alex Cole-Hamilton, leader of the Scottish Liberal Democrats, condemned Charles III's visit to see President Trump. First Minister John Swinney faced heavy criticism over the SNP's supermarket price cap pledge, and Anna Sarwar, leader of Scottish Labour, claimed that Scottish Labour were poised to topple the SNP despite the polls saying otherwise.
Also on the news, Russell Brand appeared on Piers Morgan Uncensored to discuss his checkered past and his book, How to Become a Christian in 7 Days. It got rather awkward though, however, when he was asked to read his favourite verse. They spent a whole 90 seconds looking at it as if he was trying to decide on the takeaway menu. Did he want a bit of Corinthians? No. Did he want a bit of Palms? No. He seemed to have found God quicker than he could find a passage. But what I wonder, is this turned Christianity an attempt to garner support, or is it really his devout meaning? Because it wouldn't be the first time people have turned to religion when it suited them. Public faith offers you part shield, part moral high-vis vest. It's a good reminder with the election on the horizon that things wrapped in moral language deserve a second look. Religion can offer moral authority. Like Malcolm Offord last night, he said the Bible tells us that hell has no borders but heaven does. I mean, the Bible doesn't say that, but why let the truth get in the way of a good story?
This week, Prime Minister Keir Starmer faced a challenging moment in the House of Commons over the appointment of Lord Peter Mandelson as the UK ambassador to Washington. Questions have centred on whether proper security vetting was followed before the announcement was made. On Tuesday, MPs voted whether to refer Starmer to the Privilege Committee, a motion he survived with 335 votes to 223. With local elections next week, this is a story the government will be keen to shy away from, especially as the leader of the Scottish Labour, Anna Sarwar, has publicly called for the resignation of Keir Starmer, despite 36 Labour MPs voting against the motion to investigate Starmer. A few of our correspondents went to the Youth Hustings last night, which is the only one for the entire election. This is how it went.
And this question is specifically for Jamie Maguire. How do you think people should trust politicians when people like yourself at your time at the university went in first year from being in the SNP and going to a youth trip to Parliament, at least in the SNP youth wing, going to Parliament and being chummy with the YSI, to the second year being a CLP member and a member of the Labour Party, having Jeremy Corbyn, and then when Labour ditched in the polls, you switch over to Reform and you take on their negative rhetoric on immigration. So how do you think people can have trust in young politicians like yourself when they see chancers?
First of all, I was never in the SNP, I was always Labour. I attended an event in Holyrood that anyone can sit in the gallery and watch an event. And I've got friends across the political spectrum, and I think that's the way it should be. So I think that's a good thing. In terms of trust in politics, like I was, Labour all my life, but I just didn't believe that Labour were delivering for working class communities anymore. I felt like there was a lot of people getting left behind. And I felt with Reform, what drove me towards that was actually reforming the system, reforming public services.
Right. So what we'd be doing effectively at this point is putting these people out of work, or just as bad, sending them abroad to work elsewhere. We also mentioned super polluters there. China emitted more pollution in 8 years. In 8 years since the UK has, since the start of the Industrial Revolution. That's what we are up against when we really do talk about the real super polluters of the world. It's not those working in the northeast. It's not necessarily those Scots working in the fossil fuel industry. It's states like that. And at the SNP and John Swinney seem quite keen to take money off the Chinese state in this election, so I'd be fascinated to hear how independence is a way to actually getting a just and green transition.
In all honesty, I think it's quite rich from the Scottish Conservatives and Scottish Labour to be talking about this just transition when they have the energy profit levy. Conservatives brought it in to bleed the oil and gas sector dry because they think, let's get some more money out of them. Labour's continued and talks about a just transition. I agree with Iris's point because I think we've both said that quote a few times. We cannot have a Thatcher in the coal mine. It's a metaphor. It's not saying that's what, it's not it's harkening back to what Thatcher did with the coal mines, which was just close them, no plan. It is about the northeast of Scotland having a cohesive plan to take people from the oil and gas sector and move them into the renewable sector.
One of the most important things that's caused so many issues to this country is Brexit, a Brexit that Scotland, as well as Northern Ireland, did not vote for. And the difference is Northern Ireland had its vote respected. It now has its own separate deal in relation to that, but we don't. And the argument that, oh, but it's not possible, it's never happened before, is nonsense. Greenland is not in the EU, even though Denmark and the Faroe Islands are, because Greenland didn't want to join it. It's still part of Denmark. So at the end of the day, we need to rejoin the EU. Fortunately, I'm part of the generation that actually lost out on Erasmus. I went through uni specifically during the period that we actually lost out of Erasmus completely, so it was opportunities that were taken away from me and so many other people my age.
I'm one of two transgender candidates, I believe, for Holyrood. I'm the only one that's predicted to potentially win, which would make me the first transgender person to sit in a parliament in the UK. And I am terrified. I can tell you, if any of you want to go and look at my social media posts, or if anyone wants to look through the messages or the death threats that I get, the things that people say about me and don't know me, that is because we have weak politicians that are too afraid to stand up and have a real debate about how we accommodate every single person in society.
Any time to get into the irony of the SNP talking about wasteful spending, which is a shame. But what I will do is give my two-sentence pitch to our wonderful new voter, which is that young people need change and Scotland needs change, and Labour understand that change and fundamentally have the ability to deliver on it.
Was there any standout moments for you from the hustings?
Yeah, quite a few. I think that there were some, really dramatic moments that happened there. I think when the Liberal Democrat candidate really spoke up and called out the Reform candidate, that was a kind of key moment. That was quite an intense moment actually to watch.
It's kind of an intense hustings for the Reform UK candidate, Jamie Maguire.
Yeah.
He didn't get off lightly from a lot of people.
Yeah, he did not. And the audience definitely wasn't on his side. It was very much clear that Iris, the Green candidate, seemed to be very popular. It was definitely, one-sided from the audience, but that's to be expected. It's a younger audience, and younger people are more likely to lean towards the Scottish Greens and the SNP right now, so it does make sense.
Yeah, no, it's good to see so many young people turn up to show an interest in politics, because I know it isn't really a big thing for a lot of people our age.
Yeah, no, it actually was so nice to see so many people our age there. I was slightly worried, I won't lie, going into this, that there wouldn't be, a huge turnout, but there was actually, the seats were really filled up, which was just so nice to see, and the questions just kept on coming, so it was fantastic.
Yeah, hopefully. After the hustings, we had a chance to speak to some of the candidates and ask them their thoughts on misinformation.
I think all the candidates who are here tonight, all the candidates standing for election across the country and all the big political parties have a duty to stamp out misinformation where they see it. Something that I've been very keen to do in my own campaign is research the facts and present that to people, and listen, people are intelligent, they can make up their own minds on the basis of real information. I think we all have a duty, it's incumbent on all of us, that when we are speaking to voters, we're speaking in a truthful manner and using actual bona fide facts to persuade them.
That's a great question, and I'm really glad that organisations like yourself exist in the world. I think that we have more information at our fingertips than any other point in history, but we may be, in some instances, we might lack the critical skills or the fact-checking ability to distinguish between fact and fiction, and that's what it means to me.
Fantastic question. To me, misinformation, one, means from foreign actors. So we've seen it with Russia, in Finland and in the UK. I also do think it is dog whistling as well, and I think that's something we don't talk about in misinformation. We have Reform in Glasgow talking about they'll prioritise you, not strangers. We know what they're talking about, and I think that's misinformation as well. The dog whistle is also misinformation, and I think that is just as insidious as the foreign actors engaging in our democracy.
Misinformation, it depends who it's coming from, in my opinion, what it means. There are two types for me. There's misinformation from politicians, so you have like your white lies and your misleading statements, or purposeful misinformation, where we're seeing, especially across social media these days, let's be honest, lots and lots of reactionary information pumped out that isn't true in any way, sort of form. I mean, something that will happen undoubtedly every time there is a horrific crime, before we have even had time to comfort the victims of such crime, there'll be misinformation about who the perpetrators of that crime is and why we should hate a specific minority, whoever is chosen on the day, based on false information and often rumours. It's really damaging our democracy, this tirade of misinformation, and we need a cross-party consensus to bring a lot of truth back into politics.
Emily, speaking to the young candidates at St Giles Cathedral, were there any messages that really resonated with you?
I think that everyone that I spoke to specifically about misinformation, shared the similar kind of concerns across the board, which was, again, very encouraging to see that the candidates were picking up that this is becoming an increasing problem. So for me, the misinformation angle was really, really a strong point. Aside from that, climate was kind of passed around in the conversations, which was also nice to see. So a lot of encouraging stuff there.
Was that quite party political with climate?
A bit.
Yeah.
A bit.
I figured it might
be. Yeah, I mean, it often strayed into pointing fingers to Reform and the Conservatives, as you'd kind of expect. But, in terms of collaboration between parties, I think there was a shared concern about the future of the planet. How they're going to work on that together, I didn't really see, many solutions coming to the front. Again, a lot of politics going on there, not a lot of collaboration as much as I would like to see anyway.
Wow.
But it's to be expected at Hustings.
Yeah, but at least there was concern about the future of the planet. That's a good start.
Good
On the topic of the future, given some of these candidates may be entering the Scottish Parliament come September, do you think the future of Scotland is in safe hands?
I think so. I think everyone on the panel did a decent enough job. I think there was an interesting mix of speakers. I think the Labour candidate perhaps was a lot quieter and a lot more reserved than people maybe wanted, and kind of avoiding some of those questions, particularly about Westminster. The Reform candidate similarly got grilled pretty heavily by the audience, and so therefore maybe was playing quite defensively there. I think the Green candidate came out of it pretty well, as I've said before, and the Liberal Democrat candidate as well. So, there was an interesting mix of stuff. Not quite what I expected going into it, though.
That's good to hear. Recent studies have shown that young Scots get the majority of their news from social media, such as Instagram and YouTube. In these spaces, news and politics influencers play a leading role. Now, Rory, I understand you've made a film about such influencers.
Yeah, that I did.
Well, let's have a look at that right now.
Now let's go investigate these genius Indian IT staffing companies littered all over Texas. But real quick, I just made $100 by playing games on my phone.
Where are you all from?
My name's Nick Shirley.
This guy's a real provocative.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And so what do you guys think about the current state of America right now? We're outside of where an ice
I'm actually going to go dry off.
Thanks.
There's something I want to show you. Can you come
So this lady just sabotaged my video.
But it seemed to me we were witnessing a convoy of Fed vehicles leaving Area 51. And for some reason, seeing all of those Feds grouped together, it just felt spooky to me.
Well, when I first saw the videos, my initial thought was, I'm not quite clear what this individual is doing or what his mission is, because he was not very clear about who he was, other than calling himself an independent journalist.
On social media, you may have noticed a growing trend in recent years. A new wave of online influencers calling themselves independent journalists. Some of these content creators have become massively popular. For example, let's take a look at the official YouTube channel of the most popular news outlet in the UK, the BBC. The BBC News YouTube channel has been uploading multiple times a day for 12 years, and it has a lifetime view count of 6.9 billion views. And now let's take these 6 channels as examples of this trend. If we combine all of their lifetime view counts together, we get 6.1 billion views. So the world of online journalism is definitely shifting. But the question is, how credible are these creators?
The internet is not a place that rewards nuance and, thought-provoking dialogue. It is a place that rewards antagonism and conflict and, and shouty headlines. And that's how you monetize content. That's how you become successful on the internet. So the internet itself is not something that tends towards, as a mechanism, it is not a mechanism that tends towards deliberation.
The internet has created a kind of level playing field for information gathering and information expertise, in the sense that literally anybody with access to a computer and an internet signal can set themselves up with a blog, with a site, with a YouTube channel, with an Instagram account, whatever it happens to be, and peddle information.
And in some ways that's exhilarating and it's exciting, but I think the problem becomes when, in the eyes of the public, those individuals are seen as equally credible or maybe even more credible than conventional journalism. Obviously, there are always going to be exceptions, and there are people that have risen up that way and have done exciting work and contributed very much to public discussion. But there are also people who, either out of ignorance or deliberately, have distorted the image of who they are, misrepresented to the world who they are and what their agenda is.
You wouldn't necessarily have to be working as part of an organization, so you don't necessarily need to be affiliated to either a union or be working as part of a news organization like the BBC or Sky or the Telegraph or the Times, or you could be freelance. But I think what's important is that you have a professional approach to the information gathering and evidence assessment and analysis.
A quote-unquote influencer, I'm not sure that that's the same as journalism. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's not. Because being an influencer by its very nature is about making decisions about the values of different things and then pushing that your consideration onto the public as authoritative.
So what happens then is, like, the ability to see those differences as well becomes harder as things get funneled through, I think, kind of an influencer way of the world.
So, next time you see online content that's branding itself as journalism, what should you keep in mind?
It's not saying to people, you've got to shut every social media platform that you've been on down, delete all your profiles and only watch the BBC or only, read The Guardian and The Times or whatever it happens to be. I think a better approach is to say, how do I need to skill myself up to ensure that I'm less susceptible to being misled online?
If something sounds so surprising, I would try and source it elsewhere myself. If you hear something, you go, "Oh my God, that's incredible," go and find out who else is telling you that. And also on establishing, like, again, as a journalist, it becomes slightly second nature. Like establishing, trying to establish what are the underlying assertions for the thing you're saying, where do they come from?
It's very easy to be manipulated, however bright, intelligent, well-educated you may be. There are people out there from all political directions who are masters at presenting you with misinformation. And you have to be prepared to question everything. I mean, I think that would be like my capital letter admonition, that you should question everything.
Wow, Rory, that's a really informative piece. So what kind of inspired you to kind of pick that subject matter?
Well, like Rabbi actually said earlier, there's a lot of information that most young people get from social media. That's a major source of how most young people actually understand the world. So I thought it was a really important thing to analyze and kind of take a closer look at.
And then when it came to your interviews, like, how did you go about that process of like getting those interviews and like kind of really knowing who you wanted to be the subject matter of the piece?
Well, when I was looking into one of the people I spoke about, or one of the kind of YouTubers who I was analyzing, I found out about a professor called Jane Kirtley, who is the media law professor, I think. Well, a media professor at a University of Law. But she had done some interviews speaking and analyzing his videos and had a lot of really interesting things to say, and sort of having a more traditional journalistic perspective to bring to what's kind of a pretty modern phenomenon.
Yeah, so would you say that kind of what the start point you had for your influencer film kind of changed over the course of you making it into something different?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think over time I really began to focus more and more on
what my interviewees were saying, because they just had a lot of really fascinating stuff to bring to the table. And I'll probably upload a longer cut of it because there was just so much content I couldn't fit into that video.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is whenever you interview someone, it's always important to kind of adapt. It's like you're saying, it's like because everything changes so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, last night, last week I got the amazing opportunity to go to In Conversations with Zach Polanski, and we got to kind of listen into, it was more of a kind of conversational style of how the evening went instead of it just being a panel, and it was really informative, and this is how it went. We're here at Scottish Green event tonight where Zach Polanski spoke with some local MSPs. This is how it went.
Young women are voting Green in more numbers than they ever had before. And so all the conversations we hear about all young men are going to reform, we never hear about young women who are voting Green.
Afterwards, we had the opportunity to talk to Zach Polanski off camera and spoke to some Green MSPs that are running in this upcoming election.
Well, we all know that our climate is in crisis, the cost of living is through the roof, a lot of young people are not seeing the employment opportunities that they want, and the Greens believe that we have the tools, the plan and the stamina to make that happen in Holyrood. I also would say from the statistics, 6 out of 10 young people are not registered to vote, so all those young people that are registered to vote, your vote really matters, because it could be either a Green candidate getting elected or a Reform candidate.
Everything is feeling pretty damn good for the Greens in Scotland right now. Our polling is up, our membership is up, and I think a lot of people just want to vote for something that's actually positive, that's about taking Scotland forward. To me, this election's kind of a choice of three. That you've got the politics of hate and division with Reform, you've got the politics of the status quo with the establishment parties, or the politics of hope with the Greens. We're saying that this can genuinely be better. We can have a fairer country, we can lift children out of poverty, we can deliver stuff that saves people money. The Greens delivered free bus travel for young people, now we want to deliver free bus travel for everyone. I think that kind of stuff is really resonating with people right now. So when I joined the Green Party, there were more students at my high school than there were members of the Scottish Greens. We are in a transformationally different place now, and I think this is going to be a real breakthrough election for us. There's a couple of different ways that we need to tackle disinformation. My concern is that very often we focus, I think, far too much on young people. There's more that we need to do in schools. There's countries like Finland who do really, really well at teaching their young people critical thinking skills to make sure that they can spot what is disinformation, what is propaganda, etc. In a country like Finland with an 800-kilometre border with Russia, that's a particularly real issue. There's more that we can learn from them. But actually, our young people in Scotland are some of the most media literate in the world. Our OECD reviews have found that. Where we actually have a much bigger problem is with our adult population. Generations who did not get the curriculum for excellence, maybe didn't get those critical thinking opportunities at school. We also need more public information campaigns on this to reach out to the adults who are very often picking this kind of stuff up on platforms like Facebook that I think are a far bigger problem when it comes to misinformation than maybe platforms that younger people are on.
My only piece of advice is to just research. If you see something and it feels a bit off, it probably is. Just double check your sources, go with good quality journalists that you trust, and go onto party websites, because usually they are, I wouldn't say that about some parties, but most parties will be fact checked. So yeah, just have your due diligence, and also critical thinking. We don't have to trust everything that politicians and people present to us. If you disagree, you should be able to challenge that and to use that thought. And I think a lot more people need to be able to exercise that critical thinking within their lives.
How did this compare to the SNP manifesto launch last week?
I mean, I think maybe we both kind of understood that it was much more of kind of like an informal kind of experience. Like it kind of felt a lot more kind of down to earth, a lot less kind of cameras there, because it wasn't a manifesto launch per se. It was more just a conversational kind of discussion about what they hope to see if the Scottish Greens get more seats.
So maybe a bit less rehearsed?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, Polanski took the time to meet with pretty much everyone in the queue that was wanting to talk to him, which I thought was very good of him. So yeah, it was that kind of informal setting where he clearly wanted to just chat to people one-to-one.
So yeah, obviously you also had the chance to speak to Ross Greer and ask him about misinformation. Did his answer surprise you, or not really?
Not Not really, but I spoke to Polanski on the night. I didn't get the chance to interview him, but I much preferred Ross Greer's approach to climate than what Polanski did say on both stage and to me when I did speak to him. I felt that Ross Greer had, well, clearly as you would expect, more knowledge of Scotland's position with climate change and where we're headed. So yeah, I mean, nothing that was surprising per se, but yeah, it was affirming for sure. It did reassure me.
And so obviously you're saying that it's a lot more informal. Were the candidates still willing to talk to you about policy if you asked them?
I think definitely. I think speaking to Holly Bruce, she seemed very kind of open to talking. I think, as Emily says, like about her community. They're much more kind of on the ground level, and that's what they were saying all throughout the conversation, was just how it's more about the community themselves, like how they're part of it, than just being politicians, which I think was quite refreshing to hear as a young person. And they did speak kind of in length about how they want to get young people more involved as well. So I think it was pretty informative on that front.
Yeah, amazing stuff, thank you. And now a short film from Emily on bots.
This year, Scotland is arguably more divided than ever, and with our parliamentary elections approaching, much of the battle is being played out online. But in between protesters on the streets, politicians in Parliament, and punters online, if you take a closer look, some surprising figures may be involved in the background. But who are these figures, and why are countries like Russia and Iran targeting Scottish elections?
It might seem strange to hear that Russia would have any vested interest in the outcome of the Scottish parliamentary elections, especially considering their population is 25 times larger than ours. Yet despite this, European intelligence agencies and researchers have noticed an increase in Russian bots. And strangely enough, some of them are Scottish independence fanatics. Regardless of your opinions on Scottish independence, a divided United Kingdom is viewed by Russia as weaker. If Westminster loses access to the North Sea, they lose geopolitical influence over the region. Botted accounts have been spotted sharing pro-independence content online, and researchers have noticed that as internet blackouts occur in Russia, the number of people posting about Scottish independence sharply declines. Effectively, they're infiltrating Scotland's domestic politics from the inside out. And they aren't alone. Iranian bots posing as Scottish independence accounts have also been spotted doing the same thing, reappearing and then disappearing as internet blackouts spread across Iran.
I spoke to Benjamin Strick, Director of Investigations at the Centre for Information Resilience, about how these bots function and how they could impact Scottish politics as a whole.
Yeah, if we look at like Prigozhin's setup, and I mean the really popular one is called the Internet Research Agency, the IRA. Which is, so that was kind of an office full of young tech-savvy individuals that would sit there and would, enter the office in the morning and have this kind of piece of paper, which was like talking points. And that would be it, right? So it'd be up to that individual to hop on any kind of video that would happen and hijack that video in the comment section and type, "I'm really unhappy with the government, they want to strip our arms," and all these sorts of things. So we've seen Iran in the past operating Scottish independence accounts, coming to work, and they would have this talking sheet saying, "I want you to hop in the comment section and talk about this and this and this." In order to amplify that, to get those to the top of comments, they use bots. And these bots would automatically hit the like button, automatically share that content. So each sock puppet has lots of people supporting them in the background.
Some sock puppet accounts and the bots behind them even attempt to mimic language local to the area they're targeting, and this even extends to Scottish Gaelic. The Disinformation Social Media Alliance's research says that mainstream media outlets and fact-checking organisations often lack the resources to monitor Gaelic content, meaning that it becomes harder to shoot down bots.
But bots are preventable, and they won't decide the full outcome of elections just like these. Scottish voters will, which is why it's important, now more than ever, to realise how misinformation affects how our democracy functions today.
Emily, how aware do you think Scottish people are of bots online?
I think most people have the kind of standard awareness you would expect. They see accounts that are spam posting, no profile picture, just created, and they know it's a bot. You know, I think people have that kind of awareness already. I think the real problem is people are not aware of sock puppet accounts that control bots. I think it's, as was discussed in the film, I think it's the people behind these accounts and how these accounts really work that people just are not aware of.
Okay, and as AI and the dawn of large language models being a bit of a game changer in that regard?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's something I spoke to Benjamin about in the interview, and I fortunately didn't make it to the film, but he made some really good points about how generative AI in the last 2 years has completely changed the game for bot creation and management, but also for spotting bots. So from his perspective and the perspective of an investigator, it's actually made it easier to kind of catch them out.
Alright, okay. On the topic of generative AI, our correspondent Santi has made a film about deepfakes, so let's take a look at that.
But it is my duty to judge what is in Britain's national interest. That is what I've done, and I stand by it.
You pathetic, weak and feeble joke of a man.
We will also make sure that every school in Scotland receives bananas and Nutella every day.
If you can remember in my last video, I logged on to Rish's Minecraft server and managed to find and destroy it.
Against Palantir. Well, because they have AI technology which can be used to easily enlarge the chests of people.
AI-generated content is everywhere. Recent statistics estimate that 71% of images shown on social media are now produced using AI. And whilst a lot of it can be fun, light-hearted, and silly, some of it can be misleading, and at times, downright terrifying.
I promise we will continue to fuck this country right up.
Now normally at this point, we'd get a talking head, we'd have a nice chat, and then we move on. But not today. We're actually going to do it. We're going to make a deepfake. So what are we creating? Well, a big story surrounding the Scottish election has of course been Malcolm Offord's claim that Anna Sarwar proposed that their two parties collaborate in a bid to oust the SNP. While Sarwar denies having this conversation, we're going to bring Offord's story to life and create a deepfake of the two party leaders having a secret meeting. We're then going to present the clip to my best pal, Vic, and see if she can suss the forgery out. To provide the clip with some additional merit, we're going to place the two men at a real location, a McDonald's, which happens to be close to Labour's HQ and Sarwar's Glasgow residence. We're also going to place an AI-generated version of me, who will be filming the two of them from across the road. Whilst it needs to look authentic, part of the experiment is to also demonstrate how worryingly easy it is to create misleading content. We're therefore relying on an AI generator which is freely available to the public and will be on a mid-range subscription plan. The person behind the laptop won't be a Harvard computer boffin either, rather our fellow correspondent, Emily. How close up am I actually to it? Because I don't think I'm going to get massively close to Malcolm Offord and Anna Sarwar in real life. It just has to seem covert, right?
Yeah, well, in this, we've got you kind of coming in from the side with the camera approaching them. So it doesn't, you know, I mean, it's difficult with deepfakes, especially the Grok AI model, because it looks kind of plasticky often. It doesn't have that kind of realism. But I'll try my best.
1 week later, it was show day, and Emily's handiwork was ready.
This deal is falling apart. Calm down, we'll fix it. What's the problem? It's as a pratlum, the terms changed overnight. It's a Mr. Dick standing, I'll call them. Trust me. Wow.
There's no doubt that Emily's deepfakery is terrifyingly impressive. But will it be enough to fool Vic?
I mean, yeah, but it's like, I mean, it looks like AI to me. But
Well done, it is AI.
yeah,
So
like it was kind of obvious.
basically, you've been. The reason I've been keeping this dumb is because you've been privy to a little experiment
we wanted to figure out how good AI models are actually generating misinformation. And you were kind of my guinea pig.
I don't know. I think the images really look AI. I think because it doesn't look like you, especially.
Yeah, this is something that we've had a massive problem with. The previous edits were even worse.
I don't know. I feel like it's also saying that I know you. I can very much tell it's not you. I think because you're the one who looked the most fake to me.
But bear in mind now that 5 years ago, this was nowhere near the quality it is at now. Does the fact that in another 5 years' time it could be indistinguishable something that worries you?
No, yeah, I think so. Because, like, I think you can tell that it's fake when you think of AI. But I don't know, like, I think if you're not thinking of AI or something, then you would be kind of surprised.
So, Vic didn't fall for our little experiment. But it's clear that the technology is there, and there are certain elements which it is getting right. And if this is how far AI has come in the last 5 years, where the hell is it going to be in the next 10?
I'm joined in the studio with Jack Anderson from the Scottish Youth Parliament to talk a little bit about what young people can do to get involved. So could you maybe tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do with the Scottish Youth Parliament?
Yeah, so thanks for having me along. So the Scottish Youth Parliament's the democratically elected voice of Scotland's young people. So we essentially have 2 MSYPs elected. Anybody aged 12 to 25 can stand, and we elect them every 2 years. So we elect 2 MSYPs for each constituency in the Scottish Parliament, so we mirror the same boundaries. And we also have a number of national voluntary organisations like LGBT Youth Scotland and Young Carers who get 2 members as well, who sit in the Youth Parliament as well. So our role essentially is to encourage young people to think about the issues that matter to them, and then it's our responsibility to take them to decision makers and try and get change. All our work's underpinned by Article 12 of UNCRC, so we can ensure that young people have their voices heard and they're listened to by decision makers.
I mean, that's quite a big varied group from 12 to 25, so you must be able to get kind of a good grasp of what everyone's kind of looking towards.
And I think that's it. There's a diverse backgrounds, big age range, and I think that's quite nice, the mix of views, because you'll have young people talking about their exams and then people at the top of that spectrum thinking about housing and university and stuff. So I think there's a range of issues and a range of backgrounds, which is nice.
And I'm sure you see like lots of obviously people that are kind of politically involved, but what do people kind of think, like what do you think about when trying to get young people that aren't maybe politically inclined involved in politics?
So I think we did a piece of work at the beginning of the year with the Youth Parliament and Young Scot called Young People in Politics Report. And we spoke to over 500 young people in that, and that kind of showed that young people want to be involved in politics, but they don't necessarily know how or don't think it'll make a difference. So I think for our job and our responsibility is to show young people that you can get involved in politics and it will make a difference. So I think more young role models in politics. So last night I was at the John Smith Centre hustings with young candidates. So those sorts of role models, being able to show that they can have a role in politics. It's not just older people, young people do have a role as well. It's about showing the difference we can make with our policies. So kind of closing that feedback loop. So if we've taken consultation responses or done a campaign, going back to young people and saying, this is what you've helped to deliver. So examples are like Votes at 16, free bus travel, these sorts of examples. So showing people that your voice does matter and it can make a difference.
I mean, it's really great, all the stuff that the Youth Scottish Parliament are doing, but do you think there's something that these kind of older politicians could be doing to kind of make these people feel more like engaged with and that their voices are being heard?
So I think probably the biggest thing national politicians could do and political parties is give a better offering to young people. So I think when the manifestos have all come out ahead of the election next week, and I think a lot of the policies are geared towards older people. And I think they just don't understand that young people are pretty disengaged, pretty disenfranchised with politics, and they just don't think their life's going to be better than their parents or their grandparents. So I think ultimately we need better policies from them that are going to change young people's lives. I look out at some of the issues facing young people around housing, the economy, education, and they're pretty severe. So we need better policies from parties that are going to improve young people's lives and improve them for the better.
Lastly, what is something that you would maybe say to like a young person who's maybe a bit nervous to kind of take that first step into politics?
I think it's probably that young people belong in politics. So I see young people often think it is kind of older people and politics is reserved for people maybe further on in their career or who have families, but it's absolutely not. I represent Dundee East, and in my role of the last few years, I've met loads and loads of young people, and they have fantastic ideas, loads of enthusiasm, and politics is for them. You know, we've got big challenges facing the country, and we want their enthusiasm, their skills, their experiences there, because ultimately when we get all them, we're going to get better policy outcomes. So I think it's just showing young people that they do belong and they can make a difference.
Great, thank you so much. With the election just over a week away, first-time voters might all find it all a bit confusing. So the Electoral Commission has made a little video just to explain how you can get involved and how to vote.
On Thursday, the 7th of May 2026, there will be an election to the Scottish Parliament. In this election, you will vote for members of the Scottish Parliament, or MSPs for short. The Scottish Parliament makes laws for Scotland, covering health, education, housing, justice, the environment, and more. MSPs are elected using a voting system called an additional member system. This is a form of proportional representation, meaning the number of candidates elected for each political party roughly matches the number of votes received. Before the election, you will get a poll card telling you where and when to vote. At the polling place, you will get 2 ballot papers. One is for your constituency MSP, and one is to elect regional MSPs. You will vote once on each paper. On each ballot paper, put an X next to the party or candidate you want to represent you. Make sure to follow the instructions on the ballot papers. You can ask the polling place staff if you need help. On polling day, polling places are open from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. You do not need to show photo ID at the polling place to vote in this election. For more information, visit electoralcommission.org.uk/voter.
And with that, that is our last interview, not just of this show, but of all the shows we've been doing here at Futureproof over the past couple of weeks. We still have some more stuff to come though. We have one webinar this Friday with some guests from the John Smith Centre, Scottish Youth Parliament, and David Pratt, an international correspondent and pretty famous journalist from Scotland, if I don't say so myself. It's been fantastic to have you here joining us every week. We'll have one more show, a post-election show, coming up very soon, so hope to see you there. We've had a fantastic time, I think we can all agree.
Best time of my life.
Yeah.
The best time.
Hope to see you joining along for our last webinar and post-election show.
Before we finish, can we just hold on? Does someone want to rip this up?
Pass it here.
You take it, Santa. We've had one of these every week, and it's been guiding us along. And it's tradition in the Scottish Youth Film Foundation to tear apart the last sheet.
Okay. Here goes nothing.
Woo! Into.
Bye-bye.
This has been Futureproof.